once my comments, well, right now. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Joshua.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, good morning. Pleased to have everyone join us this morning. This is a public meeting, as Andrew noted, about the Electrify America California program. The goal of today's meeting is to hear thoughts and perspectives from the public, interested parties about the current Electrify America actions to support transportation electrification in California. This is part of the 10-year consent decree commitment that Volkswagen made. And today's discussion will be about cycles 1, 2, and 3. So the existing investments and prior commitments that have occurred in the state. This meeting is occurring soon before we start the 4th and last investment cycle by Electrify America. And we're pleased to be joined by them today, as Andrew noted. I'll turn it over to Ben Preet now, the lead staff on our team for this portion of the consent decree commitment, to begin our overview, and just say thank you to everyone. We're eager to hear any and all comments today about the current program in California. Ben Preet.
Thanks, Joshua. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the public meeting to solicit comments on Electrify America's progress in California. Today, we will provide a bit of background on the commitment, including those funding areas Electrify America may invest in, followed by a quick status update by Electrify America. Then we will turn the floor over to you to share your comments. These slides will also be posted on our webpage. Before we continue with the presentation, we ask that you keep your comments brief. We do not have a time limit imposed yet, but we may need to if we are getting close to the meeting's end. Now let's take a step back and look at how this commitment came to be. Next slide, please. The Volkswagen settlement is comprised of consent decrees between the California Air Resources Board, the California Attorney General's Office, the US EPA, the US Department of Justice, and Volkswagen, stipulating the actions that Volkswagen must take to address the adverse impacts resulting from the sales of VW diesel vehicles equipped with emission defeat devices to California consumers. The next slide highlights the components of the 2-liter consent decree, one of which is the Volkswagen ZEV investment commitment. Next slide, please. The 2-liter partial consent decree is comprised of 4 appendices. Appendix A prescribes requirements for buyback of VW vehicles. Appendix B prescribes requirements for recall and repair of VW vehicles consumers didn't wish to sell back to VW. Appendix C is the Volkswagen ZEV investment commitment. And finally, Appendix D provides CARB $423 million to mitigate the excess nitrogen oxide emissions from the sale of VW diesel vehicles equipped with emission defeat devices to California consumers. Today, we will be focusing on Appendix C, the ZEV investment commitment. The next slide identifies eligible Appendix C funding areas. Next slide, please. Per the 2-liter partial consent decree, Volkswagen must expend $200 million in 4 30-month cycles. The expenditures under Appendix C are constrained to the design, planning, construction, installation, operation, and maintenance of ZEV infrastructure to support and advance the use of ZEVs, green city investments like ZEV car sharing services, zero-emission transit applications, and zero-emission freight transport projects, brand neutral public education and outreach that builds or increases public awareness of ZEVs, and access programs or actions to increase public exposure and or access to ZEVs without requiring the consumer to purchase or lease a ZEV at full market value. These programs can include the operation of ZEV car sharing services or ZEV ride hailing services. Next slide, please. In addition to the consent decree, Senate Bill 92 provides guidance to Electrify America and to CARB. This guidance includes that CARB strive to ensure 35% of the investment plan benefits low-income and or disadvantaged communities. Ensure that Electrify America submits progress reports on the implementation of the approved ZEV investment plans. CARB approves each ZEV investment plan at a public hearing. CARB posts each proposed ZEV investment plan for public comment, and CARB reports annually to the legislature on the progress of the implementation of the approved ZEV investment plans. Next slide, please. This slide outlines CARB's and Electrify America's responsibilities as outlined in the consent decree, SB 92, and Board Resolution 1723. CARB is responsible for establishing eligible investments and the contents of Electrify America's annual reports during the development of the consent decree. And as ongoing responsibilities, CARB is to post the draft ZEV investment plans and non-confidential Electrify America quarterly and annual reports, approving investment plans at a public hearing, conducting monthly meetings with Electrify America, and updating the board semi-annually on Electrify America's progress. Electrify America is responsible for submitting quarterly and annual reports, ensuring at least 35% of spending benefits disadvantaged communities, and using brand neutral and multilingual education and awareness materials. The third-party auditor evaluates Electrify America's spending for compliance and submits annual reports. Now let's take a look at Electrify America's approved cycles 1, 2, and 3 ZEV investment plans. Next slide, please. From this table, you can see that CARB approved for cycles 1, 2, and 3, $400 million for ZEV infrastructure, $69 million for green city projects, and $75 million for public education, outreach, and marketing activities. The remaining $56 million is for allowable operational expenses. The following slide looks at the spend of Electrify America's investments as of December 31st, 2022. Next slide, please. From this table, you can see that Electrify America for cycles 1, 2, and 3 has spent approximately $365.5 million on ZEV infrastructure, approximately $45.1 million on green city projects, and approximately $51.7 million for public education, outreach, and marketing activities, and approximately $44.8 million for allowable operational expenses. Cycle 3 is still in progress and will end on June 30th, 2024. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. At this point, Electrify America will provide a short presentation. Next slide, please. So, Rhiannon, please.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ria Davis, and I'm a Director of Government Affairs for Electrify America. I look forward to this opportunity to share with you today Electrify America's progress to date on its cycles 1 through 3 investments in California. Next slide, please. To provide a brief overview, since 2016, Electrify America has committed to investing $2 billion over 10 years in ZEV infrastructure, brand neutral ZEV education efforts, and ZEV access initiatives. Electrify America has created the largest open network of DC fast chargers in the United States, with over 800 stations installed and operational, with over 3,500 DC fast chargers. Electrify America is the only plug and charge compatible network in North America, which means you can pull up, connect your EV, and begin charging seamlessly. Over the last year, 25% of all US battery electric vehicles sold have come with an Electrify America service bundle, meaning specified access to the Electrify America network. We were ranked best in test 2 years in a row by Umlaut, an advisory and engineering services company within Accenture. And we're operating in 46 states, plus the District of Columbia. And within that network, we were operating the most powerful network of 150 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt chargers. Next slide, please. To provide a brief history for you, in 2016, Electrify America was founded and began its journey to fulfill its ZEV commitment to the United States. In 2017, Electrify America acquired its first site, and in 2018, opened its first station in Chicopee, Massachusetts. In this period, Electrify America also launched its mobile app to create a seamless customer experience through human-machine interface, or HMI. In 2019, Electrify America was first to open a 350 kilowatt charging site and became the largest open network of fast chargers. We completed construction of nearly 450 sites that year, setting a record pace for the industry. In 2020, Electrify America completed 2 cross-country routes utilizing our charging network. In 2021, we launched a redesign of our industry-leading mobile app, creating a one-stop shop of solutions for our customers. And in 2022, Electrify America had a network backed by 100% renewable energy. We announced a 15-year virtual power plant agreement with developer TerraGen to build a solar PV generation project in San Bernardino, California, known as Solar Glow One. With Solar Glow One, we became the largest open network in North America to enter into a virtual power plant agreement. And this helped us attain one of our sustainability goals of additionality, meaning this VPPA agreement will result in new additional renewable energy generation. And finally, in 2022, Electrify America had its first application of a battery energy storage system at a remote location in Baker, California. By October, we had installed battery storage at 150 ultra-fast charging stations nationwide, with a total of more than 30 megawatts of storage capacity, the largest rollout of battery storage plus ultra-fast charging stations in North America. These stations are capable of operating as virtual power plants and providing services such as demand response to the power grid from behind the meter. Next slide, please. Electrify America has completed the backbone of a national corridor of charging infrastructure across 46 states in the District of Columbia. We have developed over 800 stations, as I mentioned, reaching power levels of 150 kilowatts and 350 kilowatts. Our network covers multiple north, south, and east-west corridors. Our average station spacing is 70 miles apart, with a max of about 120 miles apart. We average 5 chargers per site. At the upper end of the spectrum, our 350 kilowatt chargers can deliver up to 20 miles of charge per minute. And this network is the product of our cycles 1 through 3 investments. Next slide, please. In cycle 1, Electrify America focused on developing a high-speed highway network. In Sacramento, we invested in car sharing and public transit as part of our Green City investments, and investments in level 2 workplace, multi-unit dwelling, and rural charging. In cycle 2, we expanded metro and community charging. We continued brand neutral marketing to drive public awareness and executed branded marketing to drive our station utilization. In cycle 3, we focused on expanding battery electric storage at sites and on renewable energy generation. We also invested in another Green Cities project at the Port of Long Beach and Wilmington to support medium and heavy duty drayage routes from the port to distribution centers. And in cycle 4, which we are currently in the process of drafting our investment plan for, we will include increased deployment of next generation chargers. Next slide, please. Since 2017, Electrify America has built over 250 DC fast charging stations with over 1,080 chargers in the state of California. Another 82 stations with over 293 chargers are under construction or in active permitting currently. Next slide. Electrify America is committed to building infrastructure for a sustainable future. Our stations use ultra-fast chargers from 150 to 350 kilowatts with liquid-cooled cables, and our stations accept multiple forms of payment, including credit cards and plug-in charge. Electrify America's public charging network in California is backed by 100% renewable energy. And additionally, we announced our Solar Glow One project, which became operational last month. We have 60 off-grid solar-powered chargers, which continue to operate at 30 station sites for free EV charging, predominantly in rural California. Solar canopies are deployed at over 100 charging stations, providing both physical cover and renewable energy to more than 400 individual chargers. By the end of last year, Electrify America had commissioned over 100 battery energy storage systems in California, which collectively operate as a virtual power plant and help the grid leverage renewables. Next slide, please. Electrify America's network has made fast charging convenient and accessible to large numbers of Californians. 90% of Californians live within 15 miles of an Electrify America's charger, and within 25 miles, that's closer to 96%. And 55% of DC fast charging stations are located in low income and disadvantaged communities. The average spacing between our chargers is 9 miles. We average 5 chargers per site, with the charging speeds of up to 20 miles a minute for 350 kilowatt chargers. Next slide, please. Permitting and utility interconnection remain a challenge to station deployment in California. The average time it takes to permit, design, and construct a station in California takes roughly 40% longer than the national average. And the utility interconnection timeframe of 38 weeks is 62% longer than the national average. Next slide. For our Green Cities investment in Sacramento, Electrify America provided over $10 million towards ZEV buses and shuttles and charging infrastructure to support clean transit. Causeway Connection provides electric bus service between Davis and Sacramento with 12 buses and 4 dedicated fast chargers funded by Electrify America. Additionally, 65 ultra-fast chargers were deployed across Sacramento, now powered by SMUD storage shares. Electrify America's $1.3 million investment helps SMUD invest in utility scale battery storage as well. And the Franklin Boulevard shuttle is operated by the Sacramento Regional Transit and provides on-demand rides in an electric bus funded by Electrify America. Next slide. In 2022, Electrify America installed 30 dedicated fleet chargers and battery energy storage systems to support 60 electric trucks and freight operations at the Port of Long Beach as part of the Cycle 3 Green City investment. The second Green City was chosen through a multi-stage process with extensive stakeholder input with the goal of reducing medium and heavy duty emissions in disadvantaged and low-income communities. The development continues on a 34 charger corridor to support heavy duty trucks transporting containers between the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach to the interior of Ontario. Next slide, please. Electrify America has sponsored a range of education and awareness activities, including a $1.6 million investment announced in March of this year to support science, technology, engineering, and math programs and workforce training programs through 5 organizations. One of them, Sinclair Community College, will create ZEV training courses to provide workforce development to incumbent workers at independently owned repair shops, just as an example of that investment. At Electrify America, we believe that the future is electric, and these and other efforts fueled by our investments aim to help ensure that we have the talent needed to support widespread ZEV adoption. In addition, most recently, Electrify America invested $3 million in California to drive ZEV awareness and education in low-income and disadvantaged communities. These investments build on previous year's engagement efforts to support digital and in-person education, EV ride and drive programs, events, potential EV incentives and financing workshops, and grassroots community engagement. If you go to the next slide. Recipients of these investments include Ecology Action, Xterra, EV Noir, Valley Clean Air Now, Sinclair Community College, among others. And actually, if you could go back to the previous slide, I'd appreciate it. Electrify America has also invested over $120 million in brand neutral education and awareness since 2018. Next slide. Following slide. Through educational marketing, advertising, and ride and drives, we work to increase ZEV awareness, consideration and adoption, as indicated on previous slides. For brand neutral marketing and EV awareness, Electrify America launched the Normal Now campaign in 2019 to help introduce EVs to consumers who may not be aware or have never contemplated switching to electric. The digital-only campaign had over 1 billion impressions, or has had over 1 billion impressions to date, and it provides education on EV models, incentives, charging, and purchase information. Moving on to our marketing efforts in 2022, Electrify America launched its brand neutral creative theme, As Seen on EV. The goal was to entertain consumers while educating them on the viability of EV ownership and debunking common misconceptions. Electrify America developed a campaign grounded in the language of a beloved technology that everyone knows, digital streaming. As Seen on EV leveraged streaming genres such as courtroom dramas and reality TV to tell the public of the benefits of EVs. We targeted audiences with trailer-like content and TV show poster-inspired messages to deliver key messages and drive them being drivers to the As Seen on EV website, where they could further explore EV content as they would on their favorite streaming platform. Next slide, please. Electrify America remains committed to socially responsible investments. We retain our focus on sustainable innovation, empowering communities, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. On sustainable innovation, I mentioned previously Solar Glow 1 and the VPPA that creates the additionality of our renewable energy procurement. In addition to having a network backed by 100% renewable energy, we are also deploying behind the meter battery storage, as I mentioned, that can provide backup and additional power to Electrify America stations, as well as potential grid benefits. Electrify America will continue to empower communities and advance the goal of ZEV adoption in underserved communities through brand neutral education and ride and drive programs. Electrify America will also continue to support STEM and workforce development programs and to help promote ZEV technology and infrastructure. And we will continue our commitment to DE&I through our people and culture and our investments and the suppliers that are part of our ecosystem. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for your time.
Great, thank you. So next slide, please. I would now like to open it up to comments. The first category we have is of infrastructure investments. Comments may be submitted using the chat box or verbally. Questions may also be submitted using the Q&A function on Zoom. Please use the raise hand feature to indicate interest in speaking. It is in the reactions feature here on Zoom. Unmute yourself when called upon, and please introduce yourself and affiliation. We could start with Susanna Saunders, and then Ralph Megna, and then Jennifer Venema.
Good morning. My name is Sue Saunders, and I wanted to comment on the Electrify America charging infrastructure that's currently available. And I want to compliment on the new chargers that have been an incredible improvement. The cables are longer, they're able to pull away from the kiosk and reach more carports. They have worked flawlessly many times with my Ioniq 5 in many different locations. And I want to say that at a recent visit to a Tesla's Magic Dock station, there was a repeated failure to initiate a charge for my vehicle. On the other side of this, my sister recently bought a Chevy Volt and was in need of a charge and was in a southern San Francisco location and pulled in after having to search for a long time because there was no signage to find the chargers. And when she did, there was a piece of paper on all 8 of the kiosks that the chargers were out of order. And then she had to scramble to find a new charge because she was low. I've witnessed the Ford Lightning at a recent stop where I was unable to initiate a charge and having to spend a long time on the phone with Electrify America. And I actually was the lead tester on the Cool the Earth study on Electrify America's on all of the chargers in the 9 Bay Area counties. And I witnessed a lot of frustration on the older and most of these were the older kiosks when we performed the study. And, you know, there were just kind of heartbreaking interactions that I witnessed. An older couple trying to get the charge initiated and it repeatedly failing. You know, they're on a trip, they're trying to have a nice day, they've done the right thing, they've bought an electric vehicle, and they got into a big fight when they could not initiate a charge. And she was trying to help him and he couldn't do it, and he was getting mad at her. And I've also been at a different Electrify America station where several people were frustrated and not being able to charge. And I was trying to help one woman, and she said, you know, maybe these electric vehicles aren't such a great idea. And as an electric vehicle advocate, that was really heartbreaking. On a different trip, my husband, who was on his own without me driving down to Southern California for an important band gig, could not get a charge to initiate. And he said to me, I would say no one should buy an electric vehicle. Another heartbreaking, you know, story. So what I'm trying to say is that all the older kiosks should be replaced with the new ones that are much more reliable. The new machines have longer cables that can reach, you know, most of the ports on the electric vehicles that are out now. I really hope that the credit card requirement is lifted, because that, I know that is a, you know, a big point of failure for charge initiation. And I really want to emphasize maintenance. There needs to be a dedicated fund for maintenance. There needs to be a maintenance plan, and that is followed regularly, that these machines are regularly maintained, cleaned. And so I want a detailed maintenance plan with follow-up and with third-party testing. Electrify America, I want to say, has made tremendous progress, but we need to keep going, because the experience a lot of drivers are having right now continues to be frustrating. And if this, you know, kitchen table conversations continue where the chargers are not working, people are not going to invest in an electric vehicle. And I just finally say this, that every time we put carbon in the atmosphere, it stays there for hundreds of years. We cannot afford any more gas vehicles on the road. So Electrify America is a big part of the solution, and they need to maintain and make sure that their chargers work flawlessly, so people keep buying electric vehicles and don't tell their friends and neighbors that it's not a good idea. And that concludes my comments. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So next we have Ralph Magna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Please state your affiliation.
Sure. Ralph Magna. I am a resident of Southern California, Landers, California, and specifically not affiliated with any specific organization, but I am, as I'm about to describe, a frequent Electrify America user. In fact, I have used electric vehicles or owned an electric vehicle since 2016. My current vehicle is a Ford F-150 Lightning. And so far this year alone, I've had just short of 50 charging experiences at Electrify America stations, and have consumed well over 2,000 kilowatts. So I'm intimately familiar with Electrify America. I am on a road trip as we speak. And during this road trip, during the last 48 hours, I have used 6 different Electrify America stations, including California. I want to amplify perhaps the comments of the previous speaker. Also, I want to point out that the Electrify America presentation today went into some considerable detail on their investments, as I suppose it should, but there wasn't a single mention of its operational performance, which is my focus today. On this trip I'm on right now, I've stopped at 6 different Electrify America stations. The average number of dispensers at each station were was 4, though I think there was one that was 8. At every single one of those stations, at least one charger was completely dead. At every single one of those stations, one or more chargers was throttled down to trickle charge levels. The actual number of units that were delivering full performance, which typically, by the way, was the 150 kilowatt units, not the 350s, was never more than 1. On a good day, Electrify America's operational performance is abysmal. It's terrible. And you don't need to do anything more than to go to PlugShare and read the user comments on PlugShare to get a sense of the frustration and, in fact, anger of the customer base at how pathetically poorly Electrify America runs its stations. And you can tell us all about the hundreds of millions of dollars it's investing in its infrastructure, but it's meaningless if the chargers don't work. And Electrify America's stations don't work. I mean, don't even get me started on places like Quartzsite, which is not in California, but is directly next to the border and is easily eligible for the worst charging station site in America. Here's the problem. As users, particularly those of us who are Pass Plus users, Electrify America is moving quickly to try to basically silence us. In this most recent round of price increases, which it's done twice so far this year without any appreciable improvement in its performance, in its most recent announcements, one of the things it buried in the fine print was that it is going to bar in the future, starting actually tomorrow, Electrify America is barring class action arbitration. Essentially, what they're telling us is that users cannot get together and complain and seek some kind of performance adjustment from Electrify America. And I think it says a lot about a company that it worries more about protecting itself from its customers' anger and frustration than it does about actually improving its performance. I could easily go on, but let me just go to the bottom line, and that is, in my assessment, as somebody who's been involved in electric vehicles for many years, there is no single obstacle to the adoption of zero-emission vehicles, particularly battery electric vehicles, in the United States. There's no greater obstacle to that than Electrify America. And it's not because that it isn't making investments in infrastructure. I concede that. But every single day, there are horror stories about its horrifically bad performance. And that, particularly here in the Southwest, that Electrify America seems to be perfectly happy to operate stations that it has to derate because the temperature goes above 90 degrees. This is not acceptable. If they can't source chargers that are capable of operating in the environmental conditions that exist, I suggest changing the source of the chargers and changing those chargers immediately. The previous speaker had, I think, an excellent idea. You've indicated that there are 4 or 5 different categories that Electrify America is allowed to spend the court settlement money on. I have a suggestion: create an additional category. Clearly, their VW overlords won't let them spend money on maintenance. That's clearly apparent from their actual performance. Well, if necessary, let's spend some of the VW settlement money and create a maintenance account. And that, as the previous speaker mentioned, I thought quite well, let's have independent third-party auditing and testing to determine that, in fact, the money is being used to maintain these stations, because it's very clear, left to its own, Electrify America is only going to raise its prices and do nothing, absolutely nothing, to improve its services. Thanks so much for hearing my comments.
Thank you. Next, we have Jennifer Venema.
Hi, good morning. This is Jennifer Venema. Can you hear me? I'm going to take that as an affirmative. I'm with the city of Sacramento, and I'm calling in today with comments on our experience and really tremendous partnership with Electrify America. As noted earlier, our city was the first designated green city for a $44 million investment. We really want to acknowledge and lift up all of the hard work and engagement by the Electrify America team to really involve local partners to scope out that program consistent with the consent decree. And by and large, this was very strongly successful. I want to really emphasize that the ability to make a concentrated investment in one location served to really help catalyze and strengthen our local momentum and progress towards very ambitious decarbonization goals for the transportation sector. I do want to highlight a couple of suggestions for consideration in future investment plans, and also particularly considerations for CARB as it relates to other programs where there may be more flexibility. Related to the investments, we have observed some challenges with the ongoing sustainability of the programmatic operations, specifically for the car share components of the Green City component, Green City aspects of the investment. And those car share programs, those were agreements between Electrify America and the third-party private companies that the city of Sacramento was not party to. We were engaged and advising from the side and very involved in deployment. However, once those agreements completed, we have lost the largest of those programs. Gig Car Share has now left Sacramento and have pointed to the challenges with EV charging as one of the reasons they're leaving. And we know there's some challenges with the other car share operator here as well. So I want to emphasize that the way the agreement was structured did give the cars to those companies. So although the Green City investment was in Sacramento, where those cars go next is the city doesn't have any direct say in that. And it is a shame. It's really going to set us back in terms of our ZEV and car share mobility opportunities. It's going to impact VMT. GIG was a hugely successful program, and it's a big loss for us that it's gone. So I want to call out the importance of ongoing attention to operations, sustainability. It's hard with these investments, and that's part of the challenge to really ensure the long-term sustainability. And I would emphasize that the involvement of local agencies and partners is key. I can point secondly here to some of the ongoing successful programmatic investments from the Green City work, and that is the investments in ZEV Transit, which is still under operation by our public transit provider, Regional Transit, and very successful. And so that's one, again, very grateful Electrify America engaged with us, heard us as transit as one of our priorities, and accommodated that within what was allowable. So I'm happy to answer questions or provide more context. Again, big thanks and kudos to the team, and just would encourage folks to think through some of those harder long-term issues to really ensure these types of investments are sustainable for our disadvantaged communities. That's really key, so that they're not just test beds where services come and go and don't provide enough certainty to make long-term lifestyle changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Carleen Cullen and then Tom Knox. Please state your affiliation before commenting.
Yes, hi, this is Carleen Cullen. I'm the founder and executive director of Cool the Earth. We are a nonprofit organization that has been promoting and educating EVs for 5 years. And thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My nonprofit worked with UC Berkeley to do a field study of the charging stations in the Bay Area, where we found about a quarter of the stations could not, could not perform a charge on the vehicles. And I'm also part of the National Labs Charge X Consumer Experience Working Group, and work nationally, introduce the idea of uptime to the federal highways for NEVI and the community programs. So the first thing I wanted to note is that JD Power just came out with a new study today or yesterday, and found that of the DC fast charger networks, the electric vehicle experience with public charging stations, that Electrify America ranked the lowest. That is very concerning. We're very concerned about the user experience with stations just being down, broken chargers, payment systems not working. This has been reported in national press, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and as previous callers mentioned, there is ample evidence in PlugShare and on other networks, consumer networks, that the reliability of the stations is very poor. So we have specific recommendations that we have submitted in writing to California Air Resources Board. And the first is replacement of older and underperforming stations in California. I understand that Electrify America has started replacing some stations. I would argue that nearly all of the older stations need to be replaced, and that with this replacement, it should trigger a new 10-year maintenance plan. And, you know, we all want more stations in the ground, but given the fact that there will be new stations, newly available Tesla charging stations, that the 7 big automakers have announced that they're going to be installing 30,000 stations, and with the NEVI and community programs of $7.5 billion coming in for charging, there will be ample amount of charging stations coming, and it's much more critical that the existing stations are reliable. We also would like there to be public notification of the stations to be replaced. We'd like to see that as well. We would like third-party field testing. Our understanding is there's been no field testing performed by CARB or the US EPA. We feel that there has to be an independent field testing. We would like to see a detailed maintenance plan for cycle 4 with, excuse me, with a 24-hour response time. And we'd like to see an imposition of fines as required by the consent decree. CARB should enforce the stipulations of the VW consent decree, specifically section 2.12.9 as required by paragraph 6, and the maintenance plan of Electrify America's National ZEB investment plan. So there are many recommendations we have. We really hope that CARB steps up to the challenge of addressing unreliable charging experiences and really makes use of the settlement funds to the best of their ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tom Knox.
Good morning. This is Tom Knox of Valley Clean Air Now. Just wanted to comment on our experience with Electrify America since 2018. We've been part of the phase 1, 2, and 3 plans. I'm sorry, cycle 1, 2, and 3 plans for disadvantaged community outreach to reduce barriers for ZEV adoption, increase access to ZEV charging in California's disadvantaged communities. And just wanted to really emphasize the amount of progress that we've been able to do on these issues thanks to the support of Electrify America. This goes way beyond funding. The amount of technical guidance they've given us on both home and public charging, you know, the time they spent with us to educate us on various aspects of EV charging, you know, the involvement they've had in input into our plans for disadvantaged community outreach. All of this has combined to really lead to a huge increase in our results for our ZEV programs starting in 2019. The ability to host regular community events, which have been incredibly effective to reach the most disadvantaged communities in California, low-income audiences with the least likelihood otherwise to be able to adopt ZEVs. There's a lot that we would have been not able to accomplish without the support of Electrify America, the encouragement, the advice. They've been a pleasure to work with, and it's very safe to say that our results would be far, far from where they are now without the involvement of Electrify America. So we have found the entire disadvantaged community commitment in the consent decrees. This is something that Electrify America has taken very, very seriously. They've been a pleasure to work with. Just overall, an enormous asset in our mission to increase, access to ZEV mobility of all types in disadvantaged communities. They've also been very creative about things such as there was a car share fleet that was not able to be deployed. The Electrify America team put a lot of time and effort into a creative solution where we were then able to donate those very lightly used BEVs to community-based organizations throughout the San Joaquin Valley. And all these CBOs are using these BEVs constantly in their daily work to reduce their transportation costs, as well as to promote the fact that BEVs are a really ideal solution for reducing transportation costs and reducing pollution. This is a viable solution for farm workers, for a lot of groups that otherwise would not see ZEVs as fitting into their reality. So that donation program in 2019 was just incredibly impactful, and those benefits are going to be accruing long-term throughout the San Joaquin Valley. So that their team is creative and committed. There's other examples, I won't go on, but we can always count on the Electrify America team to go above and beyond and really bring their expertise to bear on how to just change things for the better, how to enable deeper penetration into disadvantaged communities, how to make ZEVs a viable option for the audiences that otherwise would not be able to access ZEV. Really, really appreciate their involvement. And there's so many individuals there I could thank. I don't want to go into that, but they've been extremely personally involved in the problem of expanding ZEV access in DACs, and just want to thank them. To Valley Can, this has been a model program, and we'd like to thank everyone involved, and we look forward to continue working with Electrify America. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Piet Kennen. Please state your affiliation before commenting.
Hi, this is Piet Cannon with Ecology Action. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to follow up on Tom Knox's comments. Ecology Action also, we're a nonprofit located in Monterey Bay Area in California, coastal California. And we've also been a recipient of Electrify America's EV consumer equity focused outreach. And we've had for both cycle 2 and cycle 3. And those funds really have allowed Ecology Action, working with partner CBOs throughout the Central Coast, going all the way down to Santa Barbara County, to be able to develop materials and systems to work with low-income disadvantaged residents, to be able to educate them on the complexities of incentives available for purchasing an electric car, So both for purchasing, leasing, and getting used EVs. And so without Electrify America's funds, we wouldn't be able to have that system set up starting in cycle 2 and then working with other CBOs. So the funds have been able to both set up a system, develop partnerships, work with local place-based community organizations that work on social service needs for underserved populations, and be able to also educate those people, those organizations in terms of capacity building. So reaching the people that CARB wants to target that are, most disadvantaged, and be able to give them the opportunity to understand how electric vehicles can meet their driving needs and the array of incentives available to them to be able to purchase an EV or lease an EV. So really thank Electrify America for that work. And like Tom said, it's been a really a pleasure to work with Electrify America, because that's been their focus, is the main objective of serving the equity community, supporting us in our work, making it seamless as possible, and then also working with us in terms of their broader statewide marketing, and kind of syncing it up with our more regional marketing and outreach to those communities. And as many advocates and stakeholders note that we really need to be able to educate more and more about EVs and dispel some of the myths. And so really applaud Electrify America for providing the resources to do that and the partnerships to move that ahead. So yeah, just wanted to put those comments in there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Were there any more commenters that would like to speak for ZEV infrastructure? We still have 2 additional categories that we will get into. But for now, any additional comments for ZEV infrastructure? Okay, so I don't see anything in the chat or the Q&A function. I think we can move on to the next investment category, which is ZEV education, outreach, and access. And again, comments may be submitted using the chat box or verbally. Questions may be submitted using the Q&A function. Please use the hand raise function feature indicated to indicate your interest in speaking, and unmute yourself when called upon and introduce yourself and affiliation. Okay, not seeing any hands raised for ZEV education, outreach, access comments. And I do not see anything in the Q&A function and chat. Maybe we can move on to the next investment category, which is the Green City investment category. And this is the last category for comments. And again, comments may be submitted using the chat box or verbally. Questions may be submitted using the Q&A function. Please use the raise hand feature to indicate interest in speaking, and unmute yourself when called upon, and please introduce yourself and affiliation. So now we open it up to the Green City investment category for comments. Okay, so I'm not seeing any comments for the Green City investments, nor any questions in the Q&A feature or the chat. At this point, before ending our public meeting, I would like to open it up for any other comments that people may have in general about Electrify America's investments in cycles 1, 2, and 3 in California so far. Okay, I see Ralph Magna. Please unmute yourself.
I'm sorry to come back, but I just want to underscore one of the points I made earlier that I think is very important for CARB to appreciate. As of tomorrow, Electrify America is barring class action arbitration. Now, just to be clear, they already had it in its terms of service that you couldn't sue Electrify America over their service. You had to go submit yourself to arbitration. But now they're keeping us as customers, as a class, from organizing and attempting to get them to improve their service. My point in raising this again is that in the absence of customers being able to do anything to influence Electrify America's performance, it's left to those of you who are enforcing the consent agreements, the consent settlements, to do your part. We're not going to be able to legally do much of anything because Electrify America would rather legally bar us from doing anything than actually improving its performance. That leaves you as CARB, as the EPA and the other participants to perform for us. It is vitally important that CARB step up its enforcement of the performance requirements, the maintenance and operation requirements that were part of the settlement agreement. And that you need to know that you're going to be doing that for all of us who are now being silenced by Electrify America. And that I surely hope that one of the recommendations you take back to your board is to overhaul those parts of the performance. One of the other speakers said, sure, having more stations is important, but getting the ones that already exist to work is even more important. Please help us accomplish that goal, because nothing sucks more than being at a Electrify America station at 11:30 at night in the rain and it doesn't work. And that's virtually a daily occurrence. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any additional commenters that would like to comment about any of the investment categories? I see Carleen Cullen.
Hi, thanks. Just like Ralph, I'd like to amplify a few items. One is that what they call station hopping, meaning that you might try one kiosk and that might not work, but you can go to another or a different one. And if you eventually get a charge, that's acceptable. And from a consumer experience, that's completely unacceptable. Early adopters were willing to put up with anything to get off fossil fuels. But as we move to the middle of the market, this is going to be completely unacceptable. And I see people at stations all the time. I urge CARB staff and Electrify America team to go and pull up a lawn chair and sit at a charging station for a while and see what the consumer experience really is like. We do a lot of that, and we have volunteers throughout the nation. And I will tell you, the consumer experience is quite poor. We also don't think that making a phone call is an acceptable consumer experience. In I believe it was cycle 3 or cycle 2, Electrify America noted that they had increased their call center staff dramatically. This is not a solution. There needs to be maintenance. There needs to be, new technology. And I also urge CARB to evaluate the new sites. And if those are not performing, to then, have another cycle of technology with another new maintenance. We are currently analyzing all of the new stations. We have about half of them analyzed and from PlugShare comments. And we also have from some local stations over 3 months of daily data based upon on the Electrify America stations. So we think that this is just a critical issue. And as I mentioned before, there are plenty of new stations becoming available. We believe that Electrify America for cycle 3 and cycle 4 really needs to invest in improving the reliability of their stations. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any additional commenters? Okay, and I don't see any questions in the question and answer feature or comments in the chat feature. If there are no additional comments on any of the 3 investment categories, we can move on to the final slide. With the conclusion of this meeting, more information can be found using the link here. And if you have additional comments on the 3 cycles that Electrify America is implementing, please submit them to my email at vanpreet.bahambra@arb.ca.gov. And this concludes our meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Just emphasizing Banpreet's last comments about next steps, and I appreciate everyone's comments today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present.